Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm here with my friend, Tom Bruhn from Ineo. Hey Tom, how's it going?
Ben, it's great to be on the show today, and thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Tom, it is great to have you back. Last time we had you here, it was as part of a university UTD thing that we were doing, and now you get to kind of shine on your own and kind of take it wherever you want to go with it. So I'm really excited to kind of get to know you a little more, and for everybody else out there to get to do the same. Thank you for being here. Where in the world are you, Tom?
Beautiful Castle Rock, Colorado, which is where I live, and I moved here just under 2.5 years ago for the opportunity I'm currently in with Ineo, as you can see, and really have been enjoying it. It's a great place to be.
Is Ineo based out of Colorado?
It is. Actually, correctly, it's two of our three product lines are based out of Colorado, and then the third one's pretty much based out of Connecticut. So most people know Ineo because they've run into my buddy David Oltman somewhere in their career. David is actually running our tax services piece, which is one of our three product lines. And then the one I work for is actually the mobility software piece.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did throw a hashtag tax on this. I hope I wasn't too far out of bounds. I hope Dave didn't think you're coming after his client base, now. Let's see here. We got people checking in here. This is great. Throw it in the comments. I want to know who you are, where you are. Throw it in there. I want to give you a shout out right now. Let us know where you're at. Also, we're going to be talking about mentorship, advice we would give our younger selves. We're going to be talking about all sorts of, we might talk about whiskey. We might talk about rock and roll. I mean, Tom, this could go any number of ways.
Really. You better believe it.
I like it. I like it. Let's see here. We got people checking in here. We got Jill checking. We're going to shout out all the early birds
Jill.
here.
It's nice to see you.
Look at Jill. We got Angela.
Hi, Angela. Nice to see you too. It's been years.
Janaina checking in. That's what's up from Brazil.
Picked the winner with her as far as helping you out. She's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, Jana's amazing. Jana's keeping me on my toes. Let me tell you what. Speaking of keeping me on my toes, super producer Stacy in the house.
Super producer
What's up, Stacy? Richard from London. Evening.
Richard, thanks for staying up.
Look at that. The barometer of a good show is if we can make Richard miss dinner. So apparently dinner is served promptly at the 30-minute mark in our show. So if Richard bypasses dinner, if he's willing to eat a cold plate, that means we're putting out some hot products. So let's see what happens tonight, Richard. Michael Cadden, hello, gents.
Hey, Michael.
There's a Connecticut Yankee. There we go. Castle Rock's in the house.
Very beautiful actually. Yep.
Jamie Massler from sunny Mississippi.
Yes.
Mike McGill from Cleveland.
My buddy Mike McGill. We can tell some stories, Ben. I'll tell you what.
Really bringing out the riffraff already, Tom.
I might bring one up today.
Speaking of advice, they say you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with in life.
A lot of time with Mike McGill.
Just kidding, Mike. Tim Quirk here. What's up, Timmy?
Hey, Tim.
Look at this. Great backstager. Alan Kane from Germany. Love it.
Another one staying up late. Thank you, Alan.
This is great. We got Europe in the house here. Steve Dixon, N.O. Steve's a household goods driver. So, Steve, where is Dixon? Is that new? No. What is that? I don't even know what that is. Is that a typo? Missouri? What is that? Let me know. People checking in from Cleveland. Jackie Rowan from sunny Cypress, Texas. Mena from Dubai. Look at that. Wow. Middle East is in the house. Jack Craven, your buddy.
Of course, everyone knows Jack, right?
Yeah, everyone knows Jack.
Beautiful Chicago, Illinois.
Look at that. Farrell's in the house. Mike Quigley from San Jose.
Yep.
This is great. Timmy, look at this. Dinner's in the oven. What's for dinner, Richard? Let us know. Give me some suggestions.
More importantly, what are you pouring?
Yeah. Hey, there you go. What pairs nicely with what's in the oven? I need the whole rundown. Course it out for us. Sharon from Houston, hot Houston. Yeah, it's been scorching down here. Larry Broder. Hi, guys. Did I miss the drum solo? You want to take it from the top?
Yep. Larry's a drummer.
All right. Let's see here. Looking good, Tom. Look, everybody's drinking.
You silver-tongued devil. Keep it up.
There you go. Missed you at Lollapalooza. This is great. I can't imagine. Oh my goodness.
I can't either.
This is great.
I'm
we got a bunch of people. We got a bunch of people checking in. If we get enough likes and comments, Tom's committed to do a drum solo for us, just playing the desk. I got it in the show notes. It says right here you're going to do it. I don't know. So it's in your writer.
Top 5, right? So
this is great. What up, Sticks?
Lizzie. Although I just told Ben that I disagree with your #1 pizza in Chicago, Liz. So you're probably not going to like me. So.
Why do people call you Sticks? I never heard that one before.
Because I played drums when I was a kid. I actually was a dual major, music and business, and I'm a little bit of a music fanatic. Those are CDs behind me. Those are the rock CDs, and anyone who's been to my place knows I got a ton. But still a huge music nut, and maybe the top 5 will give you a little flavor of that. We'll see.
Nice. Can't wait. I love it. Beats in the house. That's what's up. Richard, salmon and some cheap Tesco wine.
There you go.
All right. Tom, you know the key to a good sangria, Tom? I heard about this from the head chef at Ceviche in Tampa. It was rated like best sangria like 10 years in a row.
Go ahead. Hit me.
Cheap red wine. Cheaper the better, he said to me.
I agree with that because that's why I don't like sangria.
There you go. Hit me up if you want the recipe. It's delicious. So all kidding aside though, Tom, you know, you came on the show a while back and I know you were super involved with the University of Texas, Dallas, Naveen Jindal School of Management and some of the mobility stuff that they're doing and mentoring some kids down there in Dallas, and I know that's in your heart. Let's talk a little bit about mentorship. We've got a series going with Sandy McKinney, and I think it's just so important. So many people are DMing me based on that series that we have going, talking about mentorship and getting in the business and succeeding in the business. You know, what's the difference to you between mentorship and leadership?
Well, I'm going to start riffing a little bit on a few of the things you mentioned. So first of all, that U of T thing was great. And my friend Kerwin Guillermo is the one who pulled me into that one with a lot of other great people. My old friend Ellie Sullivan. There's all kinds of folks that were involved in that. And I met some new friends too. But that's one of the first times I've seen mobility seriously get into the academic space so that it's really formalized and you're doing some serious training. The classes are happening during a semester. You've got different groups. Really cool. And I think they're going to keep doing it year after year. I believe that was the 3rd year they've done it. And I'm hoping to be invited back for the 4th year. So that was fantastic. I do remember from the perspective of working with colleges that it actually used to be fairly common for organizations that were clients to pull us into job fairs. So, you know, I always had I've had a lot of fantastic accounts in my career. And at the different companies I've been at, I call some of them headline accounts. So my headline account at Serva used to take me all over the country to job fairs. And it was a conglomerate that owned both military and private. They made jets, they made helicopters, they made golf carts. So you can probably guess which conglomerate it is. But anyway, we would go all over the place to different schools in the country. And it's interesting because Texas and Indiana seem to have a lot more of this kind of stuff happening. They've always been a little bit on the cutting edge as far as the actual schools that participate. So yeah, it's great. I love what you're doing with Sandy. That's fantastic. So she's an amazing professional and salesperson. You pretty much go all the above, and she's just great. So
what makes, let me ask you this, Tom. I mean, in all your experience, because you obviously talked to a ton of kids at a lot of colleges and schools, and, you know, it's obviously been something that you've really focused on. What is critical in a mentorship relationship?
So I would say that a really, really good mentor is somebody who can actually work with the individual and help him or her realize what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then they can give them very constructive criticism and very direct criticism without tearing them down in any way. So
that's a careful balance, Tom, right? I mean, that's hard to do.
It is. It's very hard. And, you know, people who are very good at it, just it's almost like it's a unicorn in some ways, although there are a lot of fantastic mentors. You asked me a question about whether or not is someone who's a great mentor always a great leader? And the answer is sometimes. I'd say that there are different leadership styles that really lend themselves to being a really great mentor. And then there are other types of leadership styles that are a little bit more sequestered off, I guess. They don't have that much of an opportunity to interact with that mentee. So, if you ask me who does both very skillfully, it's one of your mentors, and it would be Bob Rosing. Mm-hmm. So Bob has a very, what I'd call a thoughtful and quiet style of leadership. He's not, he's not out there trumping his own horn all the time, but he's someone you can really admire. And I did have the privilege of working with Bob when I was at Serva. So yeah, he can balance the two things pretty well. There are other leaders I've seen where they're just great, charismatic, inspirational leaders. And yeah, mentors are inspirational too, but in a different way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And I mean, you use the example of Bob. I think what's interesting about Bob is that he will, he's got all this gravitas and all this obviously accomplishments, accolades, and all this stuff. But he comes at you kind of in such an unassuming way, just like a regular guy, like, hey, I'm hitting the treadmill in the morning just like everybody else kind of guy. And it kind of shows, he kind of reveals some of himself to you, kind of his personal, just who he is, kind of plain Jane, kind of the way he is, right? And so it's very relatable. And so I think that's one of the things I love about his style is that he doesn't really intimidate me, right? Because some of these people you're talking to and you're like, wow, these people are like, Mount Rushmore type of people sometimes, it can get a little intimidating. And before I ask you some of your mentors and it talks about some of your experiences, we've got a few people checking in here, and I want to ask you out there, who are some of the best mentors that you've seen? If you're watching or listening to this right now, throw it in there, tag somebody, give them a shout out. Who are some of the best mentors that you've seen? I'd love to ask you, Steve Hoffman, who's one of the best mentors? Who taught you Free Bird? Steve, Steve, you better put a 20 in the hat if you want to play Free Bird.
By the way, I'll tell you, if you ever get me in a karaoke bar, that's the song I sing. So be careful.
That's it. That's the one. It's the song nobody wants requested, and then you're going to go and request it. Look at that.
It's hideous. I promise you. It's really bad.
I love it. I love it. That's great. Yeah. Who are some of the mentors? Who are some of your favorite mentors? Diane Amos.
Nice to see you.
Tag somebody. Love to see it. Hey, Denise Mass.
Denise.
Hey, Thomas, here in Chicago. Catherine Cassidy. What's up?
Oh, my gosh.
Look
Catherine.
at that.
Talk about here's another woman. I'll just jump in and say, Catherine has a fantastic leadership style. And, she's clearly, and Catherine very well, she's very articulate, obviously amazingly intelligent, and still has fun. I mean, Catherine Cassidy is someone who really it's someone you want to be around because she's got that energy level, and she's just you just want to be around her all the time because she's so much fun.
I want Catherine on the show. I've been trying to coordinate Catherine Cassidy on the show. Can we tag Catherine? Can we get like a letter writing campaign or somebody start like a, change.org or something to get Catherine on the show?
You're
Catherine,
like Oprah. Who did Oprah?
I know, Catherine, I know that you're busy. I know you're keeping the wheels on the operation right now. But come September, I'd love to get you on. She does have that way about her. And that's another thing I like in a mentor, just to be honest with you. I like someone that can have a conversation with me about relo, career, whatever, has all the chops and all the experience, decades of experience like Catherine does, and then can also go and have a beer and talk about life and talk about being a husband or a wife or a parent or a, just whatever that is, right? And just all that kind of stuff. I love that in someone. So let's get Catherine on the show. We got Erica Burton checking in. All shucks on my face.
Here's another one. Erica is one of my favorite people to be around. Period. I love Erica. There's Erica people. So anyway,
Erica, shout out a mentor here. Tag a mentor. We want to know who's responsible for you. Please put some. I saw Erica in Columbus. We had such an amazing time. She's probably a top 5 person for hanging out with.
Absolutely, and you'll probably end up at Weber Grill. So there you have it.
There you go. I like it. Elizabeth Martin. It's not my number 1 favorite pizza place. My number 1 touristy place. You want the best? Come to the South Side. That sounds like a threat to me. Come to the South Side. Come see me. Come see me in the neighborhood. You know.
Watch out, Lizzie Beats is going to take you astray, my friend.
Seriously, that's great. How do you think she got those turntables? She didn't buy them. Katie Lenahan, hi Ben and Tom. What's up, Katie? Venetius.
Hey, my goodness. Yeah.
One of the best. Look at this. You got so many people coming out for you here today. Rob Zeitz. I'd love to know who your mentors are. Rob, Vinny, Mike, Philia. Greetings from Southern California. You guys have a great show.
Mike. I've seen him on your show, and he's always got a lot of great things to say.
Mike came on the show.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike came on the show the first time. He was on for the Mentor series too. Sandy hadn't won. Came on. I just talked about you today, Mike. Shout out, Mike. Mike came on. He was willing to share about his father who passed due to COVID. And Mike opened my eyes and hopefully a lot of other people's eyes. I'm just revisiting this because I think it's a public health opportunity. If you've had COVID in the last 3 months, please donate your, I think it's CCP, covalent COVID plasma or something like that. If you've had COVID, donate plasma. That plasma can save lives. Shout out to my friend Jose Abatley. I don't know if he's watching the show. He just got over COVID. He's immunosuppressed. He went in the University of Washington. They gave him some COVID, some plasma, some with the antibodies in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's okay now. He's on the other side of it. Super quick turnaround. So if you've had COVID, please go out and donate your plasma, please. It can save lives. Thank you, Mike Philia, for helping us understand that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Buddy. Jamie Master, Tom Sawyer, drum solo.
Neil Peart, baby. And it's pronounced Peart, by the way.
I love it. Lizzie Beach, shouting out Sarah Chambers. Awesome.
Yeah,
Tag these folks.
Awesome.
No.
She is.
Look at this. Quiet Style Leadership. That's it. As long as it's not Stairway to Heaven. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine singing Stairway to Heaven on karaoke? How long is that song?
Nobody except Robert Plant can sing Stairway to Heaven, first of all. Although Ann Wilson does a pretty good version from heart. But it's my other karaoke song is Smoke on the Water. So there you go.
Smoke
I can sing it.
On the water. Fire in the sky. That's sorry. Jamie Massler, Bill Mulholland, amazing guy. Awesome. Look at that. Look at the shout outs here. I'm loving this. Keep shouting out your favorite mentors. Barb Hale has been such an amazing mentor. Absolutely love having her as a leader at Deluxe Suites. Pam O'Connor, Bob Portali, Katie Musanti. Look what you started.
Look at this.
This is great.
Good choices.
Fantastic. I'm sorry. We're going to keep these coming. We're going to get to all of them. Vinny says, I had the opportunity to have learned from one of the best. Eric Halverson. He was my first client when I joined Grable back in the day. He's an amazing human being. There's so many others. Peggy Smith, Rajiv, Mike Quigley, so many others.
I got a comment there for you. You talk about different styles of leadership. Look at Chris Colley and Peggy Smith, and now look at what Lynn Shotwell's doing. I mean, they're all really great leaders in their own right, but you don't think of them as having the exact same style of leadership, do you?
No, totally different, but also but successful, right?
Exactly.
That's really interesting. There's not one style of leadership, not one. So tell me about some of your mentors, Tom. I want to give you some space to talk about these folks.
Okay, I'll start talking about mentorship. So, I started my career in the mid 80s, and I think it was on one of your shows. I said they didn't have any formal mentoring programs back then. And it's funny because I think the first time I ever remember hearing about mentoring as something formal was on an episode of Seinfeld where George wanted to meet a woman who was a professional mentor. And I don't know if he had professional interests in mind, but anyway, it was a pretty funny episode. But when you reflect on your career, you can think about the fact that there were people who were mentors, whether it was formal or informal. And for a lot of us who started our careers at a company called PHH Home Equity, which was a long time ago, that's one of the legacy Cardis companies. But there was a woman named Beatrice Pruden, and Beatrice had this really great training program. Now, bear in mind, back in the early days, I sound like Methuselah, but back then, the landscape was so different than it is now. It's not even, it's hard. It's really hard to believe it's changed this much in such a short period of time. But home sale files were at least 70% of what you dealt with. So it was mostly home sale and marketing assistance and destination services. And really, I started my career in an entry-level position, and I'm really a huge fan about talking about entry level. But anyway, they made a lot more money back then, Ben. They were charging.
I imagine if you say 70% of what you're doing is home sales. I mean, you must have been. I mean, people must have been raking it in at that point.
They were rolling in dough compared to the way it is now. But all kidding aside, the margins were different. And just on home sale programs, we had a lot of contracts with clients where we were charging 2% of the home value as just the fee to do the home sale, and then collecting referral fees too. So try to think about the difference in terms of how much, margin you're driving when you're pulling that kind of money. And,
however, the referral fees were lower back then, weren't they? Because they've crept up, haven't they?
They were lower. And, of course, the reason they went up is to kind of compensate for where all the revenues were kind of disappearing.
Yeah.
But, we had the benefit back then of being able to do tons of training and development, tons of reward and recognition, and a lot of organizations simply don't have that kind of money to do the same kinds of things that PHH did back then. But Beatrice Pruden ran a training program, and my recollection was that I want to say it was at least 2 weeks long. I don't remember exactly how long it was now, but they threw us into a class. We learned the basics, so we learned it from the ground up, and they had a class on the ERC BMA form, the ERC appraisal form, what are the title search, that kind of, and it, again, focused on home sale and marketing assistance and destination. There was no internet. There was no email. So faxing contracts.
Give me a year, Tom. I'm sorry. I hate to say a gentleman never asked a lady her age, but you know what? A talk show host does ask a guy, what year are we talking about, Tom?
This was 1987.
Man, yep. I was playing with Topps baseball cards in '87. Okay, go ahead.
So Beatrice was really something, because I think she was an influence on a lot of people. And then as I kind of flash forward in my career, I do divide mentors from leaders. So I work for a lot of great leaders. I work for a lot of great mentors. So if I don't mention them in the same breath, you can't draw any conclusions. But I started supporting counselors. I was an associate counselor, and that's a position that I kind of wish RMCs would bring back, because it's a great breeding ground for entry level, but also, you've got a pipeline of future counselors that way. You don't have to keep stealing them from each other. But anyway,
by the way, side note, that's a great point, right? And if you're not stealing them from each other and paying a premium, driving up the price of talent, you're then hiring people kind of like off the street, like April, May, putting a Band-Aid on something.
I can't even imagine how hard honestly, I can't imagine how hard it would be to just jump into a counselor position if you have no mobility background in today's, it's such a hard job. But anyway, I became a counselor eventually, and I was on Amico, which of course is now BP, and got some really good results right out of the gate. And I really worked hard for those results. One of the mandates for me is half the battle showing up. So I always try to show up, and I spent a lot of hours achieving a lot of those results. But ultimately, the results were good enough. I started working with Arthur Anderson and Ernst & Young. And those two programs were run by Betty Carr at Arthur Anderson and Gail Davis at Ernst & Young. And those two actually were just really helpful to me in terms of being great mentors, because they pulled me aside and helped me understand how to deliver service to someone who's basically an owner as opposed to an employee. Big difference. So it was great. So early mentors were some of those folks. And then moving forward, you know, I think one of the questions that you were going to ask me is, what's the best advice I ever got? It was actually from a manager of mine at Sendent Mobility, was the name at the time. And her name was Renee Carnes. And she was a good mentor too. And there's just a bunch. So I could go on, but
I'm putting it in here. This is awesome. I love these stories. I just put what's the best advice you ever got in the comments here. We're gonna go through the mentor sound off and everything, but yeah, throw that into the comments. I love it, and I like your other maxim there. You know, half the battle showing up. I think it's huge. I think it's underrated. I'm also huge. I'm gonna say something controversial. I've said it before in this program. I'm gonna say it again in case y'all weren't on that last one. That's why I'm a big fan of participation trophies, because half the battle or more is showing up. Think about a college diploma. You literally got that piece of paper for showing up. As long as you show up and don't fail out, you're gonna graduate. Okay. So I mean, there's a lot to be said for showing up consistently. I think consistency is akin to greatness. I think that's another one I really love. But I'd love to know, what's the best piece of advice you ever got? Throw it in the comments, and also feel free to tag somebody that gave it to you. That's awesome. I'd love to hear that from all of you. Vinny, Katie, Steve, Liz. Let's see here. We got a bunch of people checking in. Let's shout out some of these mentors. What do you say, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about mentors for a minute.
Let's shout some of these folks out here.
There you go.
Steve Hoffman. Dave Tiernan was my best mentor. Recently retired from John Hancock, former John Hancock SVP. It's important to have mentors in your business and your personal life. My dad is my mentor with DJing. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah.
I was a DJ, by the way. Go ahead.
Is that what drummers do when?
No, that's what starving music students do when they're in college. They DJ and they write record reviews and do all kinds of crazy stuff.
I love it. I love it. Vinny's going to put a list together. Put a list over. Don't send it to me. Publish a LinkedIn article. Shout him out, Vinny. Love you, man. Deep Purple Flash. Jen Thomas. I shouted out Kerwin. We shouted him out earlier.
Kerwin is fantastic. He really is. He's amazing.
Kerwin is such a strategic mentor too. He's so sharp. We could do a Kerwin episode too.
One of the most serious thinkers in our business. Seriously.
Mm-hmm. Rob, for mentors, I got to go with my even kill boss, Brendan Adridge, but I can list a few others: Sean Luchins, Morgan Crosby, Stills and Nash, Inez Nomidis. Too many more to tag. Was that cheap? I don't know.
I see what you did there. That was pretty good.
You see what I did there? Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here. We got some great advice here, but it's the best advice you ever got. You know what? I might have made a top 5 about this, Tom. Can I do that? Can I do a top 5?
Why not? Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to do it here. We're going to get some of the advice here from some of the folks here, and then we might do my own top 5 about advice. Aaron Venable, best advice given and modeled by a former boss: there's no right way to do a wrong thing.
There you go.
Jamie, best advice I received was not to react, wait, and respond. Interesting. Awesome. Carol Kennedy, good advice from Mike Tufo: ask for forgiveness, not permission. What do you think about this piece of advice here, Tom?
That's interesting. I think it's good. I think that if I was going to calibrate that a little bit, I'd say try to avoid needing forgiveness as often as possible. But and believe me, Lord knows I've needed forgiveness in my career. So it's not that I'm saying that doesn't happen, but yeah.
Yeah, Carol, I tend to agree with you, Carol. You know, push the envelope a little bit. I remember I was speaking of advice. I was a young supervisor and I couldn't seem to do anything right. And I said to I was always getting in trouble, right? I was always getting in trouble by the big boss, by the SVP, right? And I went to one of the older supervisor guys on the floor, and I said, Tim, I just can't seem to do anything right. I got all these great ideas, and I can't seem to do anything. I keep getting in trouble. And he said to me, he's a North Carolina tobacco farmer. He was just doing this, for like health insurance. And he said to me, he said, Ben, if you weren't full of piss and vinegar, you wouldn't be worth a damn. So, thanks, Tim. So basically, he was saying if you weren't pushing the envelope and getting in trouble, you know, you don't have experience, you don't have know-how, so you might as well be pushing the envelope. That's all you got. Kevin and Ryan, great to be here. Always return a phone call or voicemail.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that was good. Shouting out Morgan O'Brien here from Larry Broder. Tim Quirk, I can't teach you how to cut grass, son. This was told to me by a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. I stood up in the room full of like 100 people, and I said, hey, I'm over here. We got a lot of trucks. We got a lot of containers. How come nobody ever called me if, you know, it's a dumpster fire every peak season? I'm not getting any phone calls. The guy said, you know, who are you? I said, I'm with Pods. They laughed at me. And I said, well, can you at least teach me how to get into the program? And he turns around and says, I can't teach you how to cut grass, son. And I felt about this big, but I kept coming back. So here I am. Let's see here. Jody Harris, be willing to say, I don't know, but then find out. Be okay with not being the smartest in the room. Shut up and listen and repeat
that's for sure. Let's pause on that one for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't realize it, but when you're in a client meeting, and, you know, it's important when you're a transferee or an assignee interface person, but it's also super important when you're an account manager or in sales. Your job isn't really to sit there and be the smartest or the most interesting people in the room. It's to make sure the client feels like they're the most interesting person in the room. And Jody's spot on with that one for sure. That's something that actually takes time to learn too. Some younger professionals will be able to do that right out of the gate, but for most people, it takes experience.
No, it's great. Yeah, I mean, I work with businesses all the time that are kind of, you know, getting their feet under them, and they're kind of talking about how they're going to pitch, and we talk about the meeting, and okay, what's the strategy going in? And, you know, they kind of really want to hop into the deck, and they want to hop into their value prop and all this kind of stuff and ask for the business. And that's pretty much the way they would chunk up the call. And I said, you know, build rapport for as long as you can. And then if you can't do that anymore, start asking questions about their business. And if we never get to the presentation, we've done a good job.
Absolutely. You know, there are some sales folks I've worked with that, you know, grill you about, you know, what are you going to say and the questions. And the problem with that approach is that you don't know how the meeting's going to go. And the best salespeople are actually the ones that are really nimble on their feet, but they also go into the meeting and let the client participate in the meeting as much as possible. So, you know, the best salespeople I've worked with have taken a different kind of approach. I don't know if you read a lot of sales books. I bet you have. But
I have. Unfortunately, I've read quite a few.
One of my favorites is called the Challenger Sale, right? And they basically identify 5 types of salesperson. And the reality is that nobody just falls into buckets, right? Certainly most salespeople will have aspects of those 5 types, but essentially they kind of categorize these 5 types and they analyze it. And one of them is the relationship builder. And that was famously in the old days, the, you know, backslapping, glad handing, relationship builder. And then at the top of the list was what they called the challenger. And then they had a lone wolf and then the hard worker. And I think the other one was, I'm trying to remember. I think it was the problem solver or something like that. I should remember there's only 5. Anyway, when they analyzed it, as far as who's the high potential person, as far as closing deals and bringing in the business, it's actually the challenger. In other words, the person who goes into the client, tries to get them to tell them something, and then tries to position questions where they're challenging them about what are you missing? What do you need? What can you do differently? The relationship builder is actually the person who closes the fewest sales. And it was just a really interesting book. So
that's great. What can we put the name of that again? Stacy, would you throw a link to that book in the comments here? Tom, what was that book again?
It's called, it's the Challenger Sale, and the author's Matthew Dixon. I really think it's a great sales book because it just kind of outlines what you really have to do in today's world. It worked 20, 30 years ago as far as that whole relationship thing. It just simply doesn't work anymore. So,
yeah, super interesting.
the other thing that's interesting. So let me ask you a question. Do you mind?
Please. I love questions.
If you were to really self-identify, okay, would you call yourself a natural extrovert? Now, be honest.
I really don't know the definition of extrovert. I can only know the kind of the way it's characterized. I think I do tend to. I like the way I've heard it best defined that I identify with, and is that an extrovert is around people and they get energy from those interactions.
Yep.
An introvert's around people and it kind of takes energy from them. I get energy when I'm around people, and I would prefer to be with people than not around people myself.
Yeah, and that's not how I would define it, but that's okay. You can have a different definition, but
how would you define it, though, Tom? Educate me, please.
Well, there's a really good book called Quiet, right? It's by Susan Cain, and my friend Pam Matson turned me on to that a long time ago. And that's another one that's worth reading because it talks about, high-performing teams actually need a combination of different types of people. So you need not just extroverts, because if you throw a bunch of alpha males and alpha females into a meeting, it's chaos. And what you really need is someone who's going to take different types of roles and have different types of perspectives. So the point here is that when I think back on my career and I think about the salespeople who I thought were the most effective, and it's not that they were introverts, and it's not that they necessarily were extroverts either. I happen to I've taken enough, psychometric exams and done enough tests where I know
assessments and everything.
Yeah, sure. all that stuff. So I fall smack dab in the middle on every single one of them. I'm right in the middle. But the best salespeople I work with, I don't think a single one of them would describe themselves as natural extroverts. So when I talk about the best, earlier in my career at Serva, the guy that ran the entire sales program was a guy named Tim Callahan. He was really fantastic, and believe it or not, even though I didn't get to work with her very often, one-on-one, Sandy, I always watched her conferences and stuff, and I always thought, wow, no wonder she closes so many deals. She's really good. And those two, and Jim Schneider too, to do meetings with Jim Schneider was always a real privilege because I never saw anyone do a meeting close so well. So, I'm just naming people. We're just riffing here. There's got to be lots.
I mean, so you're talking about a couple of things. So that makes me think of something. For me, when I think of a salesperson that's successful, the number one thing that I think of is follow-up. If they can just work the people through work the prospect through the different levels of the process. I think just showing up showing up on time with what they needed as requested and kind of just over delivering kind of on a micro level, just doing that, I think is huge. And the second thing I think would be the ability to ask questions and actually, empathize and understand and actually ask questions. And
absolutely. The question,
like the challenger you were saying,
if you're going to work in the service industry, even if you're in a counseling position, if you're doing any type of customer interface, the ability to ask skillful questions and sometimes strategic questions is really it's a skill set you just can't get enough of, for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Jody says, I live the always be yourself mottos. Anyone who knows me can attest. That's great. I'm putting a link there for the Challenger sale. Appreciate that. Jana says there's training for it as well. That's great. Liz says one of the best pieces of advice is never stay comfortable, always go above and beyond, and always be yourself.
Yep. Get out of that comfort zone if you have the right, or the privilege, I should say, to do it. That's right.
I love it. I want to give you a few pieces of advice I've heard, and I want your thoughts on them.
Sure.
Is that cool, Tom? Can we do this?
Sure.
That I'd love to hear what you think too. I wrote down in preparation for this because we're talking about advice we would kind of give our prior self, and I thought back to when I was a younger man, and some of the advice that I got that was kind of stuck with me, and I just wrote some things down. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on these as well. And then I'd love to hear maybe a piece of advice that you would, wish you would have gotten as you were a younger person as well.
Sure.
So 5 pieces of advice I've been given. Number 5, you get out what you put in. Where this came from, I have no friggin' clue, but I say it all the time, so I got it from somewhere.
NFC is no friggin' clue, huh? Okay.
Yeah, that's just because it's early in the day and I haven't been drinking yet. No, but you get out what you put in. I truly believe this, right? People say, "Oh, is it worth going to ERC?" Well, how are you going to go? How are you going to show up? Are you going to show up in a big, meaningful way and engage people in a way they haven't been engaged before, or are you just gonna go and show up in a way that where you expect to get nothing out of it?
You know what kills me? You actually hear some people complain that they're going to a conference, and I've heard that through my whole career. And luckily, it's not the majority of people, of course. Most people know what a privilege it is to be able to even go to the conference in the first place. And, you talk about young entry-level people. That's an area where every industry in the world could do a lot better as far as reward and recognition, because you could get them to go to the local conferences, or maybe, in our space, some of the companies can send their highest potential entry-level people, right? I didn't say young, I said highest potential.
High potentials, yeah. How do you identify that high potential for the conference experience?
I think it's actually a two-way street. So high potential people actually make themselves known a lot of the time. They come through and they're the ones who raise the hand. They're the ones that are kind of up front, or sitting in the front row, whatever you want to call it, but they're not hiding. And I really believe that if you want to have a substantive career, you've got to be the person who raises your hand. I've probably done it too often as far as asking too many questions, but it's important. You have to participate in your own career. You have to drive it yourself. And then hopefully you do align with mentors and you get great advice like what we're talking about here.
Speaking of raising your hand at conferences, I heard you got a little announcement, a little teaser you want to give us about the upcoming ERC show.
Oh, that's very kind of you to bring that up. Yeah, I submitted a presentation proposal in early July and I got accepted. So we're going to be doing a presentation and very excited about it. So I'm going to be looking for panelists, and I've reached out to a couple of folks over the last week or so, and I've got till the end of August to nail it down. So I got to come up with 3 or 4 people. I got one.
What is the what's the topic?
The title, oh boy, what's the title? I probably have.
Hey, working title, it's fine.
Okay. The title is "The Money Will Follow: Mobility Strategies to Drive ROI."
Love it.
So it's really about the fact that throughout the entire span of the industry that I've been in it, finding a way to, tie what we do directly, hey, Sue, good to see you, directly to ROI is very difficult. It's very hard.
Extremely hard. It's the holy grail of our business, honestly.
It is. So I would propose that there's a lot of stuff you can do that really shows that there's a pretty big downstream impact on ROI from mobility practice and policy. So that's kind of just an overview. And we have to have the whole thing submitted by the end of August. So it's more than that. So I had some ideas about how to present that, and hopefully we have some good panelists. So thanks for asking.
If you need any suggestions, I've got some for you. I went down the path.
I might come to you.
I'd be honored to kick in a couple ideas. I'll tell you what, I went down the path of trying to prove ROI at an ERC conference. I don't know if you had the displeasure of being in that session or not, but it was the biggest rhetorical failure of my career.
Well, you know what? That's good advice. You're allowed to fail, and as long as you learn from your failure, you're in good shape, right?
Yeah. It was brutal, and that's counting Lake Geneva. So that was it. That was way beyond. All right, let's go to number. That's awesome, Tom. Everybody come support Tom at ERC in Chicago. Do you know the day and time yet?
I think it's Thursday, and I think it's
nice.
9 30,
Nice.
15,
Key slot. Keys. Hey, as long as you're not Friday morning, dude, you're
yeah, you don't want to have after lunch because everyone's going to go into a food coma.
Yeah.
So.
Friday morning or Thursday afternoon, you're doing just fine. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Everybody go check Tom out. All right, I want to hear your thoughts on number 4 here. Number 4. Innovation is changing yourself before someone changes you. Captain Sully Sullenberger at the Atlas Forum, which was like, where'd this guy come up with, this Miracle on the Hudson guy, right? Like didn't think of him as this like strategic thinker, but for some reason that stuck with me. I was sitting at a old school van line forum, and he's up there talking about innovation and changing ourselves before someone comes in and disrupts us and changes us. And unfortunately, we often wait too long. But what are your thoughts on this one?
I like it a lot. I'm a big believer in the 4 stages of competency. So when you start a new role, you're unconsciously incompetent. You have no idea what you don't even know. And then the second stage is you're consciously incompetent.
I'm identifying with all these stages as long as they end with incompetent.
You know what you don't know. And then you're consciously competent because you have to think about being competent. And then the final stage is you're unconsciously competent. So you don't even have to think about it. It comes naturally. So my observation in our industry is it actually takes about 2 full years to work your way through all 4 stages. And as I said, I've been very fortunate in my career because that whole piece about changing yourself and eventually once you've hit your comfort zone, maybe you can kind of move into something that takes you out of it a little bit and learn something new. And I think that's really important to have a really great career. Vicki Lander said something last week. I think I watched that show after I watch a show at night a lot. You'd be surprised, but
thank you.
She made a really good point. When you're looking at a career, sometimes it's really worth pursuing a lateral move at some point in your career so you can learn something brand new and then combine everything that you've learned into something that's actually bigger. So I thought it was a really good point you made there.
So for me, I was talking to a guy who's in his 20s. He works at RMC. He's kind of getting some notoriety. He's kind of at that consultant level, but he's not getting the money he's looking for. Yep. And he's starting to get antsy, right? He's starting to kind of look around. He's like, I need to get some money and everything. And I shared with him. I was like, I was being paid, $30-something thousand for the most of my 20s, right? And I always, I couldn't break through that four handle.
Yeah, I'm thinking of my 30s when you say that number.
Well, I mean, yeah, but your 30s were the 90s or the 80s. I don't even know. But you know what I'm saying? But like, you're always feeling underpaid, right? And by the way, it's better to feel underpaid than overpaid. But anyway, and when you're in your 20s, that is really your time where you're building skills. You're just putting all right. You're just collecting all the skills. And in your 30s, I would say you're collecting that network because now they're letting you out a little bit, right? They're not just keeping you in a cubicle. Now you get out, you go to little relo regional things. You start making a little name for yourself, right? Colleagues have moved on to other businesses, and now they're kind of out there. You got little fingers in the world, People know who you are. You have a personal brand, right? So you got skills, you got personal brand. And in your 40s, I'm guessing, or late 30s or 50s for some people, hopefully you can put it all together into something that means something, right? And so I agree with what you're saying about amassing those skills. And I think a lateral move can be a great way to do that. Don't do it because you don't like where you are. Do it because you see something where you're going that's going to make you a better person. Because if you don't like where you are, a lot of times, well, my father-in-law says, no matter where you go, there you are. So if you don't like your situation and it has anything to do with the man in the mirror, when you go wherever you're going to go, you're going to have the same problems when you get there.
Yeah. And, when you're in your 20s, you don't have the same level of self-awareness. You just don't. So some people do. I don't want to make it an absolute, but I think that a lot of folks, Sheila King said something that was great. I mean, outgrown relationships. So as you get older, you start to realize, okay, who are the people that I want to be around who are going to help me raise my game and who are the people who are actually bringing out not the best in me, but the worst in me. And, again, not to name names, but to name the people that bring out the best in you. And you've had a lot of them on your show. When I think of some of the people I've had the privilege of partnering with, and, I really mean the word partner, is that we worked together. It wasn't just that person, and it wasn't just me. It was a team effort. And, Catherine was certainly someone who was fantastic to do meetings with when I was at Serva. Vicki Lander at 2 companies. And again, these are headline accounts I'm referencing. Suppliers. So I think of Diane Ayers, who's fabulous to present with. There's all kinds of people out there. I could go on and on. People who work in the consulting services teams, like at Serva, Bill McDonald. She and I used to go to Textron all the time to present. It was fantastic. Laura Levinson, Ellie Sullivan, Jen Cannell. I can go on and on and on.
How do you identify those people that you surround yourself with that you say make you raise your game? Like, what is an aspect of that person? What is a characteristic or a trait you're looking for?
That's an interesting question, because, again, I think what it is trying to put together a high performing team. And I would submit that the highest performing teams are the ones where you don't have a bunch of homogenous team members going into the meeting with the exact same role or the same, questions or whatever. I think that, Vicki and I had a lot of great meetings when I was at Weichert. I reported to her for the first, 6 years when I was there. And we would bring people in with us. So, Hope Christakos, Jack was at a lot of meetings. Denise Mask was at a lot of meetings. And I'm just thinking of people that have either done the show or here right now. There's just so many great people in this industry, and you can learn from every single one of them. So, by the way, Sue Bornhorst is a very fun person, as is Lizzie Morton.
You know what I love about you, Tom? You shout everybody out. You name drop. I think a lot of people we don't tell people how much they mean to us until maybe it's too late. I mean, take the opportunity. When somebody strikes you, you think of somebody, tell them, tell other people. I mean, really be that person who's out there shouting people out, because that's a gift. Honestly, just think about how much it means to you, right? To hear yourself shouted out, and you can give that gift for free all day long. It's like all it takes is just
Bridget. So here's another person. Bridget and I, with so many people that I just named, have been doing this for a very long time. You knew she was going places for sure. You knew it. So
yeah. Vinny's talking about the importance of constructive criticism. Oh gosh. Another one was feedback was a gift.
Absolutely.
That was one that used to always be like, if I heard feedback was a gift, you remember, I don't know if you remember the monologue in Pulp Fiction when Sam Jackson's looking at this guy and he's quoting that Bible verse. He's like, if I told that to you, that used to mean it was going to be your rear end, right? And that was, but now I've turned over another leaf. When I heard feedback was a gift in my 20s from the CMO of the company I worked at, that used to mean that was my rear end right there when I heard that. And that was used to mean, that was when she sent me that in an email, like, hey, come to my office, I got some feedback for you. I was putting a phone book in my trousers, walking in there, just trying, because I knew I was about to get a shovel upside the head. That's awesome. Stacy, give me a couple more. Give me another quote here real quick here. Never sell yourself short. I never understood what this meant. I was told this when I was like 12 years old. At a bar, Smith & Wollensky in Manhattan. I don't know what I was doing at a bar. I was 12. I don't know. And I was told never sell yourself short. I thought he was talking about selling myself. I was like, why would I sell myself, Donnie? But I didn't realize that it basically means, if not you, who, right? I mean, you can pretty much do anything you put your mind to, and never really let anyone tell you can't. And I think that, early in my career, a lot of people said, oh, there's smarter people than us working on that, right? Oh, it's a little bit above your pay grade. And listen, I get that. You don't want to be too big for your britches and you want to stay in your lane, all those other good sayings. But always know in the back of your mind, you can really do anything you put your mind to, as long as you hang on and get that fourth level of competency that Tom was talking about.
One of the phrases I absolutely hate is that this isn't rocket science, because it makes me kind of cringe. because it implies that what we do is easy. And I've always said that this industry is not for the faint of heart. You know, people don't get in this because they think they're going to be independently wealthy. They do it because they really have that core desire to serve. And
right.
You know, you've asked people what makes a good relocation professional, and I liked the way Dave Benzavengo answered that question. He said natural curiosity, and I would expand on that a little bit and go further and say genuine interest in other people, because if you have none of that, you got to stay out of this industry because it's not going to be right for you.
Yeah. So. Genuine interest. I love it. I love it. Stacy, give me a number 2 there. Success is never owned. It's only rented, and the rent is due every day.
Amen, brother.
Rory Vaden, Take the Stairs. He's an author. He's great. That was a great quote. You know who else loves this one? Bill Mulholland loves this one. He uses it when he goes to the gym. It applies in personal physical fitness. It applies in just if you're a salesperson working through things through the funnel. It applies if you're a consultant, you know, and you got some awards for great customer service, but you got a stack of files on your desk right now, you know, you always gotta bring it every single day. What's number 1 there, Stace? Oh my gosh, I love this one. You know, for some reason, half the good stuff comes in a bar, which might be the ROI on going to bars. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. I was standing at a bar in DC with Brigadier General Mark Scheid. Shout out Mark Scheid. You can tag him, and somebody want to tag him in the comments. He used to be at Teradata. He might be retired now from that. He was punching out of the military. This guy wrote the logistics war plan after 9/11. His first day on the job as the logistics war planner for Central Command, which is the Middle East, was September 10th, 2001. The next day, 9/11 happens. Yep. He spent the next 2 years basically in a bunker writing the logistics war plan, how to get fuel, men, MREs, weapons, etc., into a landlocked Afghanistan. And he's standing there, and we're having a Bud Light, and he's pontificating his life after the services, right? And somebody goes from basically being a 1-star general, a who's who, Pentagon level person, to basically being just another guy looking for a job in about 2 weeks, right? And so we're hanging out, and then this whole procession of people came by just to pay, you know, just honor this person. Mark, it was so good working with you. My husband worked with you at Fort Belvoir. I worked with you at the Pentagon. You probably don't remember me, but you were so influential to me when I was just in school at, you know, wherever. And I mean, people one after another, and he looks over to me and he says, Ben, I don't know who half these people are. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're kissing the ring. Like, you don't know who half these people are. You obviously meant so much to them. And he says, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And that stuck with me for so long, because people always say, oh, in this business, it's who you know. And it's not who you know, because you could walk into ERC and you can know who every single one of these people is, but unless they know who you are. So I think that it's really key to make sure that you're relevant to people. And the key to being relevant to people is always make sure you're giving more to them than you're taking, right? And I was just
thanking them as often as you can. Yeah. You can't thank people enough. So yeah, no doubt about it, Ben. No doubt about it. So.
Yeah. Man, Tom, we've talked a lot.
You put 2 people like us together, that's going to happen.
We talked a lot. This is great. We have a ton of people watching right now. People are obviously.
Do
we? Throw it in the comments. What's your favorite insight? Do you have a question for Tom? We got a few minutes. I looked at his calendar. He's wide open for the rest of the day. So if we want to keep him for another couple hours, we sure can. Should we talk about bourbon? Should we talk about drummers? Should we talk about Relo insights? Should we talk about, you know, let's
talk about high potentials for a minute, because I think that the mistake with high potentials is that a lot of people think that there's an expiration date on them, right? In other words, once you're a high potential, once you reach a certain age, that the party's over and you're done. Stick a fork in you. So that's not correct at all. And in fact, I would challenge you to put 3 higher potentials on one show than you had last Thursday. So that would be William Taylor, Vicky Lander, and our friend Sandy McKinney. So those 3 are high potentials for the rest of their lives. But, you know, how do you keep high potentials? Well, that's exactly what we've been talking about. It's through training and development and reward and recognition. And you give them opportunities. It doesn't have to be promotional stuff. It doesn't even have to be career oriented necessarily from the perspective events, training opportunities that might not have a direct correlation to mobility. There's all kinds of things you can do with these folks, but that's where some of the budget constraints come in, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, no, I love that about keeping high potential. I think you're so spot on. I mean, that's, you know, the name of the game, right? Is look at Sandy. Sandy's a hashtag life high potential. That's great,
Absolutely.
Sandy. Look at that. Look at that. Sandy, doesn't it feel good when you shout somebody out? Look at Tom. He's giving you some kudos.
Well, Sandy, I'll just quickly on Sandy. Let's just talk about that for a second.
Let's just talk about Sandy.
So I watched her as a competitor. You know, there's a lot of air quotes I'm using in this interview. Mm-hmm. So forgive all my gestures. I have Italian. But anyway, I watched her, you know, Sandy and I used to go to conferences constantly. There's Sarah Chambers, by the way, talk about high potential. But it's funny because I always watched her. I'm like, she's doing a lot of things that I think, you know, either I'm doing already or I want to do, because she's really good at operating a room. And I don't mean that in a schmoozing, phony way, because there's nothing disingenuine or insincere about the way she operates. And that's another thing I can't stand, is when someone says that in this industry you can get far by being a schmoozer, because there's nothing that's further from the truth. If you don't have any sincerity and you're not genuine at all, you will not make it in this industry for very long. If you're, and that, I've always believed that. It's a lot of hard work and it is a lot of networking. And again, it's identifying who do you go into the meetings with. There's a lot of thought that goes into all this stuff. But anyway, Sandy's a consummate pro. And then when she joined the company that she's at now, I made a personal decision, which had nothing to do with the company, and kind of moved on, but we didn't have a chance to work as colleagues. But it would have been a lot of fun. And she and I would get together as competitors, and that's how the industry is. Everyone's nice to each other, because sooner or later, if you're not nice to everybody, you're going to see them as a boss or a colleague or a client. So you better try to be nice.
That's, you know, I'm even seeing that now, you know, as I've pivoted, right? I mean, people become bosses, clients, partners,
exactly,
whatever, right? Influencers in some way. That's great. Jonathan Frey, great conversation. Thank you both for sharing. Sarah Chambers, yes,
Jonathan's
you came.
Another excellent,
super sharp.
Oh my
super
goodness.
Sharp. Awesome.
My goodness. I wish I'd, you know, you had two people that just popped up here. And again, I don't think high potential is limited by age, but you know, I wish I'd been as sharp as Sarah and Jonathan. But anyway, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this real quick. Lightning round here.
Okay, here we go. Boom.
Favorite bourbon?
So that's a really good question. And depending on the day, as you well know, I imagine the answer can change. But I'll tell you.
What does it depend on? If it changes based on the day, what are your fair weather fickle bourbon tastes?
Listen, there's all kinds of psychological factors. This has been proven. If you see the bottle, you see the label, you know how much it costs, that actually feeds into your perception of how you're going to taste it, right? So the best thing to do is do blind tastings. So I'm just going to tell you quickly. I've actually done a couple of blind tastings, and usually it's limited to 6 different whiskeys. Okay. And just to remind you, Ben, I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky, so I'm an expert, my friend. I was born to the manner born on bourbon, dude. Okay.
Okay.
So anyway, we did 2 bourbon tastings, and the one that came out on top, I'll tell you the top and the bottom. Okay. In both of them, the one that was at the top was Eagle Rare, which is a fine Buffalo Trace product. And Buffalo Trace makes Pappy. It makes Colonel E.H. Taylor. It makes all kinds of really good.
I got some Colonel Taylor in there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's one of my favorites. But then the one that lost both times, sadly.
What?
Bob Dylan needs to stick to writing tunes, because his Heaven's Door is not so good.
Heaven's Door bourbon?
It's actually, I think it's actually a Tennessee sipping whiskey, and it's awful.
Oh, Tennessee whiskey. Okay, first of all, Tennessee whiskey Chris Stapleton. I mean, I love you, man. But Tennessee whiskey and Stacey Huff, she's from Tennessee too, I think, and she's probably gonna like quit on me.
Fair. There's some good Tennessee sipping whiskey.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know what's funny is I incorporated my cousin drinks Jack Daniels, and I incorporated Jack in a blind taste test. He swears by Jack. Well, I disagree.
You lose? You lost?
Well, you know, it's funny. It was by far my least favorite, and it was his favorite. So you know what? It goes to show you that tastes are just, you know, tastes.
Absolutely.
So I knew you're from Louisville, as they say. I think
that's how we say it.
My favorite, if I were to just like have a sip right now, it would probably be this Rabbit Hole. Rabbit Hole. You know what I love? I love a finished bourbon. Now this may be sacrilege. But a bourbon that is,
I don't think it is.
A bourbon that's aged in a sherry or a port cask. Angel's Envy is aged in a port cask. I mean, I think Angel's a little overrated. But this Rabbit Hole, and, you know, shout out to Chris Krashunas.
But this is interesting. I'll have to try that.
Shout out to Chris Krashunas who bought me this Rabbit Hole, brought it to my hey, and Val, if you're still watching, somebody tag Chris Krashunas, amazing decorator over there at Deluxe, one of the partners. This stuff is so good, man. I'm on my fourth bottle probably this.
Interesting.
That's a good bottle right there, in my opinion. Okay, Janet. Janet has a question. What does Tom think about Blanton's?
Blanton's is a good whiskey, Janet. Nothing wrong with Blanton's. And they're not, by the way, they're not giving Blanton's away either. So that's not a cheap whiskey. No,
that Blanton's is so hard. It's impossible to find. If you can find a bottle of Blanton's, buy it for me. I'll Venmo you.
There was a Weller 12-year that I used to find fairly easily, and that they called it Poor Man's Pappy. And it's actually impossible to get your hands on now, so it's sad.
There's some good. You can find some Weller down here in Texas. Weller's not maybe not 12. Maybe you're right.
Nope. No, you find the reserve, but you're not finding the 12-year, my friend. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. He says my friend, like we're not friends anymore. All right, that's good. That's Letitia. Not my friend. My friend, like we're stepping outside if I say another word. Hey, Tom, I know you're a drummer. You got a top 5 for us today?
Yeah, and thank you for indulging me because I'm sure we just lost half the audience with this top 5.
I don't know, maybe,
I don't know. We'll see. I was talking to Larry this morning, and he's a drummer, so I think that's a good start at least. He'll stick around for a minute, but
hit that like button. I was told we were going to get a drum solo. I told we were going to get a drum solo if we get enough likes. If we get over 100.
Yeah, I got
over
props
100 likes.
too. I got props for what it's worth. So
okay.
So I would quick disclaimer. I'm going to break a couple hearts because Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins and Ian Pace from Deep Purple, and I'm sorry because he already came up. Neil Peart just missed the list. Okay, I'm sorry, but he's the drummer for Rush. And
all right, let's see. Let's see. What do we got? Number 5.
Okay, number 5. A lot of people don't realize it, but Phil Collins played drums for Genesis. And then by the way, have you ever seen that show Sea of Tranquility with Pete Pardo?
No.
He does these best of lists. It's a YouTube rabbit hole. So he does the best of all these bands. But Phil Collins played on lots and lots of albums. He was the band Brand X. Can you see that? There it is. So anyway, Phil Collins, great rock drummer, underrated. So he's number 5.
Well, here's what I love about Phil Collins is he is correct me if I'm wrong because I'm limited here. I'm out of my depth. But he is kind of the front man, but from the drum kit. Isn't that true?
Actually, when they went on concert, he brought in other drummers. So they had another drummer named Chester Thompson who used to tour with them. Genesis, that is. Yeah. And Phil Collins actually on his own albums plays some awesome drums. He did a lot of really creative thing. In the Air Tonight.
The most epic drum solo, in my opinion, of all time is In the Air Tonight.
The sound of that drum was the first time that ever happened. So you're absolutely right. Good job, Mike. Good job.
Yeah. I mean, this is still played at NFL games now. Shout out to rest in peace DMX who actually kind of brought it back also. But yeah, In the Air Tonight, drum solo, epic. All right. Number 4.
So this is the only one where I don't have records. So believe it or not, the guy that plays for Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, he's in 2 bands, is a great drummer, Matt Cameron. And by the way, he's the only, I think he's the only American in the top. Or no, that's not right. Oh, one thing about Phil Collins, he's a left-handed drummer too. I forgot to mention that. So.
Is that a problem? Is that hard to do?
It's just unusual because drum sets are designed like so many things for right-handed people. But Phil is a lefty, as was Ian Pace from Richard. Phil is great. Yeah, Bridget, thank you.
Number 3.
All right, this is an easy one. Stuart Copeland, and drummers love Stuart Copeland for a reason. He's just an awesome drummer. I'm trying to pick some of their best examples, by the way.
Yeah, sure. Police. Okay.
Police. So he's just a great drummer, and there you have it. Boom. I went to college at University of Miami, and this kid just thought he was the greatest. All right.
Janet says my son's a left-handed drummer.
All right, there you go. Thank you, Janet. All right, so no top drummer list would be complete without the mighty John Bonham. That's Zeppelin 4. This is the one that has Stairway to Heaven and Black Dog and Rock and Roll. And my favorite song on the album, which also drummers love, When the Levee Breaks, which has been sampled endlessly. And then if you ever want to see him live, get this DVD set. Don't watch Song Remains the Same.
Don't watch Song.
No,
you can't
Song
tease
Remains
that.
the Same. It's an awful. They were terrible in that video. You need to see this. This is great.
Awesome. Number 1 favorite drummer of all time.
Yes, it's Bill Bruford. So he played with Yes. He played on Roundabout, which is the biggest hit Yes had, along with, he didn't play with Owner of a Lonely Heart. Close to the Edge. He was in King Crimson. King Crimson. This is my King Crimson glass.
Nice.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I do. So let me ask you this: as a person who's not,
tonight, by the way,
what makes an excellent drummer?
So my criteria is they've got their own style. So Keith Moon is a great drummer. He's a mess. Technically he's a mess, but he's a great drummer, a great rock drummer. Travis Barker, who I think is in Blink 182, is a great drummer. There's so many great drummers and rock bands out there. I could go on and on and on. But yeah, these are my 5 favorites. And sometimes the list changes, Ben, just like bourbon. Sometimes it moves up and down a little bit.
All right. Well, you said you said you're what makes a great drummer is having their own style.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not a drummer expert, so I defer to you on this. But one thing I like that I find unique about drummers such as Phil Collins is that they could really command a band from the drummer, which is kind of a back seat, kind of a spot on the stage physically and everything. And when I think about that, Tito Puente.
Awesome.
Tito Puente.
He's more of a percussionist than the drummer.
Sorry, it sounds like we're splitting hairs.
Well, we were talking about rock drummers. So first of all, he's not a rock drummer.
Can we put the category up, Stacy? Did it say rock drummer in it?
Greatest rock drummer.
All right, it said rock drummer. Fine, Tito Puente, you're out. You're nobody, Tito.
You need to listen better. You need to work on those listening skills.
I'm a challenger, Tom. I'm a challenger.
Now, Tito Puente is an awesome percussionist, so no denying Tito Puente. Absolutely,
you win. And for the Bob Rosing lookalike contest runner-up, Martin Foxwell. I put Steve Gadd on that list. Tom,
not a rock drummer. Steve Gadd. Actually, that's not fair. Steve Gadd can play anything. I think most people would consider Steve Gadd more of a fusion or closer to a jazz drummer. That's okay.
Bridget Ritchie, wow, no Dave or Taylor. I think we need to take this offline.
I said at the beginning, people are going to be mad at me because I didn't put Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins on there. So sorry about that.
This is great. Sarah shouting out the vinyl. Love seeing your favorites. Mike Falia, shout out to the one-armed drummer from Def Leppard.
Inarguably, Mike, the best one-armed drummer in history is Rick Allen. Rock drummer, best one-armed rock drummer in history is Rick Allen, hands down. No pun intended. Sorry.
You know, we were doing so good. I cursed one time, and you made one. All right, here we go.
This is why I always get in trouble, Ben.
This is why we should have cut it at the hour, and we keep going, begging for trouble. Nothing good happens after midnight. Nothing good happens after the 60-minute mark. Steve Gadd from Rochester.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Shout out to he's on Steely Dan albums. He's on. You can't believe how many albums Steve Gadd is on. He's amazing.
That's awesome. Everybody, hit that like button right now. Hit that green round of applause if you're on LinkedIn. Let Tom know what a wonderful job he did. Just did 75 minutes off the dome. Also, big shout out to tomorrow's guest, Tom. No offense, but I'm hopping on a plane tomorrow morning, and we're gonna, just real quick, I want to promote the fact that we are going to be live from Omaha. It's
Great
not
city.
just known for its steaks, Tom.
No, that's actually Omaha and Lincoln. And I told you at the beginning of the show before we were on that you were just in one of my favorite cities, most underrated, underappreciated cities. So Pittsburgh, Omaha is a fun city. You'll have a good time. Kansas City.
Tom, I've never been to Omaha.
It's nice. You're going to be surprised.
I'm there for one night and one night only, Tom. What do I do?
You're going to be surprised. I like it. I really do. Lincoln's nice too.
What do I do? What do I hit in Omaha? What's the move?
Get a steak, of course. You were right. So my father worked in the meat industry, and little known fact, the best steaks in the world go to two places, and Omaha's not one of them, but they're probably third. So Kansas City and Chicago get the best steaks in the world.
I would think New York. New York would.
Chicago and Kansas City get the best steak.
Wow, Kansas City. What a waste. All right, well, I'm going to be in Omaha. I can't wait. We're going to be interviewing Randy Wilson, CEO and president of NEI Global Relocation tomorrow at NEI. So please tune in. Set your clocks, 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Mountain, 1 o'clock Pacific. I could go on. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you all there tomorrow. Tom, thanks. This has been
so much fun. Thanks for inviting me. And I can't wait to see everyone in Chicago.
Yeah, seriously. Can't wait to see you in Chicago. Take care, everybody. Get vaccinated.